in Japan, which is one of the largest tea drinking nations in the world, with exports of South Africa's indigenous tea hitting record highs in 2018. More than 2,000 tons were shipped to its shores last year, the largest consignment since Rooibos was first introduced to the Japanese in the 80s. According to the South African Rooibos Council, it hasn't been easy breaking into the Japanese market, but Rooibos is starting to make some serious inroads. Bergh is the chairperson of the South African Rooibos Council, and he joins us via Skype. Martin, thank you very much for joining us. Well, let me start first by asking you, in terms of the performance of the highly competitive tea market in the Far East and also in Asia, how are the numbers rolling up?
Well, as you said in the introduction, Rooibos has been traded in Japan for about 35 years. When it first was introduced to Japan, it was very difficult. The cultures were very difficult. Nobody in Japan spoke English. We didn't speak Japanese. But the people who imported it positioned it very highly as a real luxury product. They promoted it, and slowly with time, prices have become more realistic. It's gone into the supermarket shelves. And so volume has grown to the position now where Rooibos really is a known core product on Japanese tea shelves.
So now, given that Japan is one of the tea-loving nations, what was making it difficult for Rooibos to excel in market penetration to an extent that right now it is the most talked about product when you talk about tea in South Africa?
I think it's generally just that when a new product is introduced to a market, people are not aware of its properties. People are fairly conservative when it comes to what they're drinking, especially hot tea, hot drinks. So if you're used to drinking a certain product, you carry on doing that. And it takes time to get people to experiment and then to get used to the flavor and the characteristics. So it's all a matter of information, knowledge, and repeating it over and over.
Yeah, well, I like it when you talk about people experimenting, because we've been having a report saying that some prefer tea for health reasons. And when it comes to adaptation to taste and the issue of caffeine, where other people are addicted to it, others are allergic to it. We then come to the issue of how the strategy was really implemented, because this is a big deal to South Africa, given that the row regarding, the copyright and the patent product and the labeling thereof was really contentious about 3 to 4 years ago when we were having this discussion.
It's interesting how people change. When we first went to Japan, there was nothing in Japan about caffeine. It's only been in the last, I would say, 10 years or less that caffeine has really become an issue in Japan, and people have started to try and cut down on their caffeine consumption. So obviously with this newfound knowledge of caffeine not being great for you, especially lots of caffeine keeping you awake at night. Japan is an aging society. So the knowledge that Rooibos is caffeine-free, included on top of its other health characteristics, has been a big factor in persuading Japanese people to try Rooibos.
Well, given that we've been having a slightly upbeat report on the GDP, not so much of a significant increase, but also with reference last week to the South Africa import-export ratio having improved. So in terms of numbers, the tons that we have referred to, that it has been 200,000 tons, and the performance in terms of Rooibos in the export market, how would you rate it?
Well, we don't have hard numbers on that, but approximately 8,000 tons of Rooibos is exported. 8,000 tons is 8 million kilograms at about 80 Rand to 90 Rand a kilogram is about 700 million Rand, which South Africa earns for the exports of rooibos.
All right. So on a parting shot, how has rooibos been performing as compared to Ceylon tea?
Globally, in very big numbers, Ceylon tea has been on a very slow downward curve over many years. The consumption of tea is not going up, whereas the consumption of rooibos is steadily growing and has been growing as nicely, especially in Japan. So although rooibos is only a fraction of the size of the black tea industry, it's growing, whilst the black tea industry is either static or actually decreasing slightly.
All right. Well, congratulations are all in order to the South African Rooibos Association. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me on your show.
Right, that's Martin Bergh, who is the chairperson of the South African Rooibos Council, who is speaking to us via Skype. We're going to take a break, and Eben Janssen is standing by to give us a taste of what's happening in the world of sport.